ethics is the backbone of trust in attorneys. We have to conduct ourselves in an ethical manner. There are legal ethical rules that are established that we all learn and are established by different states. And the ABA has established rules. And it's so important because if we're here in this to help people, we want to maintain that level of trust. If we lose the trust in our profession, we would lose everything.
Welcome to another episode of Women Worldwide. Thank you so much for tuning in, for showing up, and for always sharing how you're doing, especially during these uncertain times. We hope that you're well and staying safe, which is so important. And always, you can reach out. We never want you to feel alone. You can tweet me. I'm at D. Breckenridge. To let us know how you're doing, where you're facing challenges, so we can continue to bring the guests, the stories, and the advice to help you. All right, let's tune in. Let's start with our topic and our special guest. So the topic is marriage and family. And yes, something that I don't believe we've ever discussed on the show, divorce. Because divorce is tough enough on families during normal times, but what about these uncertain times? Well, I've got a guest today who has a lot to share in this area. Her name is Morghan Richardson, and Morghan is a divorce attorney, and she's also a mediator. She's a sought-after resource in child support, in property settlement issues, and she's also a litigator and a partner at Davidoff, and I hope I said that right, Hutcher and Citron in New York City. So Morghan, welcome to Women Worldwide.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I know there's a whole bunch of, there's a lot of accolades on your CV, so I really cut it short so we could just dive into the discussion. And I wanted to ask you, because I like to do this with guests, what made you decide to be a divorce attorney?
Well, I sort of got here, maybe not in a conventional way. At first, after I graduated from college, I was a journalist, and I covered a lot of cops and courts, so I was in the courts a lot. And then I had the unfortunate or fortunate opportunity to cover an execution. And that really solidified my feeling that I needed to go to law school. So from there, I went to law school and I got into corporate litigation, which was not really as fulfilling as I had imagined my role as attorney would be. And I started helping people on a pro bono basis in family law, and it clicked for me. It's just a much more personal area of the law.
Interesting. I mean, it's good that when you look back, I think everything that we do sort of shapes who you are today, to have different experiences to decide on family law and to be a divorce attorney. And I'm just curious, how has coronavirus and a global pandemic actually affected the way that you're working with your clients? Because I can see you're looks like you're working from home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like so many people, I'm here at my desk in my house, and my kids are downstairs with my husband, and we're trying to juggle all of that. But it's actually been, I think, pretty easy to adapt. I think women in particular are great at adapting and juggling. So that's not something that we're not used to already doing. It's also been great to connect more with people sort of in this format, electronic, Zoom or Skype or what have you. So I am very accessible to clients that way.
That's good. And are there do cases move forward during coronavirus, or are the courts getting all backed up?
Oh my gosh, it's a real disaster. The courts are definitely backed up. For a while, things were completely shut down except for what they were considering essential or emergencies.
Yeah.
which involved things like domestic violence or things you would expect to see needing that kind of immediacy. Now things are slowly starting to open up, and we're slowly getting to have more and more chances to speak with judges on cases that were already going on. But it's still very difficult without having the staff in the courts and without sort of having, the resources that the court needs. The judges are sort of calling in on these virtual court appearances, and they're in their homes too. And so they have, they don't have what they need to necessarily help push things forward as well as they would like to. But it's a work in progress. I'm impressed at how well they've started to adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah. It just changes for everybody. On the family level, are you finding that being sheltering in place for families that are seeking divorce, is this harder? Is this easier? Is it a time to work things out, to be more of a team, or does stress add to a level of, I hate to say it, but contentiousness?
Oh, definitely. This is a stressful situation for very healthy marriages. If your marriage has some cracks in it, those are definitely getting pushed to the forefront. And I've talked to a lot of people who feel like they're hitting their breaking point. I mean, I'm in New York, so we're still sheltering at home, and we're working on how to start reopening the city. But I expect that a lot of people are still going to be home through probably the end of this month and maybe in June as well, because our schools are closed.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that's something, women in business, whether you're a woman in the field of law or any area, you rely on that children go to school, right? And you have your work day, and, whatever time your day ends, you always know that they're provided for. This whole element of people figuring out either homeschooling or how to get their kids on online classes, that's got to be so tough.
I think what I've heard a lot of women telling me, and what I've seen a lot of other women talking about, is that this has really shifted the fact that we do so much. Typically, we do so much in the home, we do so much with the kids, but we also are doing work that's equal to whatever our husbands may be doing. But who has been bearing the brunt of the load with respect to homeschooling, with respect to the constant chores now by having kids in your house? There's constantly dirty dishes in the sink. There's constantly snacks being made. There's constant laundry happening. And I think that is a pressure cooker, especially for women, because we're bearing the brunt of it.
Absolutely. Just the normal ins and outs of your business and what goes on can be pressure. So when you're in the home and you see the laundry and the dishes in the sink, I work from home anyway, and I do a lot of remote, but there's always something that can be done. And if you're not used to it, it's almost like that shock of, it pulls you away from attention and focus, and that can be hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I also want to ask you about being a woman in the legal profession. How has that felt, and what sort of challenges do you find there, or maybe not?
I think that my generation is fairly lucky. We're not the first generation of women going into this industry. So a lot of, the ceiling has been broken by other women. But there are still older attorneys, especially particularly male, who are still practicing, who are not from my generation, who do have the same responses, especially maybe to younger women. So you still find a lot of that. I do think we are still outnumbered in the legal industry, especially in litigation, because it's an aggressive area.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you think your generation is most looking for in terms of women in your generation?
If I don't know if I can answer for my entire generation, but I would say just equality, just an even playing field for everyone.
Yeah, it's so important. And I don't know, I've been looking a lot at the millennial generation versus Gen X versus boomers. And I find it fascinating, especially in the field of law, what millennials are looking for in their organizations are different than maybe the way some of the older lawyers and managing partners how the organizations are set up. So there could be a little bit of a disconnect, and uniting those generations, whether it's legal or any field, can be challenging in terms of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's definitely a certain mindset within a lot of law firms and how they're structured and how they're run. I'm really fortunate. My firm is about like 60 attorneys. And there are a number of the partners are all older men, but there are a number of them, they fully understand.
That's
And they
great.
fully understand their mindset needs to change. And so they strive for that. They work to be progressive in terms of business practices and trying to keep up. And I think a lot of attorneys do have that mindset where we're trained to also be able to learn and advance ourselves.
Morgan, I am so glad that you said that, because I think that, it's an equation with men and women. It's not just women from a generation wanting equal pay or equality matters, but it's men and women together. That's what actually is going to change it. So that's so important. Do you have mentors? I mean, I know I do a lot of mentoring, and I've always relied on mentors in communication. Do you have mentors who have guided you as far as law?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's lucky to be at a firm because the other attorneys who are practicing with you have a great deal of insight and information. So like my partner, Leslie Barbara, she's the head of the matrimonial department, and she has a good, 10 years on my practice. And so it's nice to be able to bounce ideas off of her if it's a situation that I haven't experienced before, and vice versa. It makes it an easier place to find that sort of mentorship. But I am also actively involved with the New York State Bar Association. It's a section for women in the law, and it's a cross section of all different types of attorneys who are females. And that's a great place to check it out. If you're watching this and you're a lawyer in New York, it's a great place to find that sort of mentorship if you're not in a firm, if you're solo.
That's terrific. Well, Morgan, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts just for a moment. We're going to shift our focus very briefly over to the sponsor of today's episode, which is Routledge Publishing. And Routledge is one of the leading publishers in the world of textbooks and academic journals. And they also happen to be the publisher of my book, Answers for Modern Communicators. And I wrote this book. It's in a Q&A format. So I've answered over 150 questions related to public relations, marketing, social media, building relationships. And I thought it would be fun if you answered a question in my book.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So your question, and this is just so appropriate for an attorney, is question number 4. Why should you keep ethics top of mind?
I think that is a super fantastic question for attorneys. My answer is, for attorneys specifically, ethics is the backbone of trust in attorneys. We have to conduct ourselves in an ethical manner. There are legal ethical rules that are established that we all learn and are established by different states. And the ABA has established rules. And it's so important because if we're here in this to help people, we want to maintain that level of trust. If we lose the trust in our profession, we would lose everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for answering that question. And a big thank you to Routledge for sponsoring this episode of Women Worldwide. Okay, Morgan, let's dive back into our conversation. So just curious, as you were experiencing different types of law, and then you got into family law and being a divorce attorney, did you have any big, learning moments that aha or uh-oh that really stands out? If you want to share a story.
I mean, I've definitely had a few of those moments. It's such a rewarding area. And sometimes lawyers will say, like, I'll never do family law. It's just too emotional. But to me, that emotion and trying to watch people sort of emerge from a really dark place is what makes it so important and valuable to me. I've definitely seen clients. I remember one, and he came to my office, and the first thing, he just looked withdrawn. He looked so broken. Yeah. And I try to get people to start talking to me about facing forward and where they want to go, because divorce doesn't mean that's the end of the road. There's another road, a new path that maybe you didn't realize you needed to explore, but it's there. So let's look at it. And what does that look like? And he started talking about his cousin who owns a vineyard in California and how he's always wanted a bed and breakfast. And he literally just started blossoming. Like, he just started sitting up straighter. He just started getting, excited. And that was a super great moment for me. I always think of it because it was just like, wow, what an effect that just having this little conversation and trying to turn this individual's view, it was amazing. It was a transformation.
No, that is amazing, because I can only imagine how many people would go into your office feeling really sad and down about a situation, and having an attorney that guides you and gets you to yourself, focus forward, is really important. And, being somebody who has gone through a divorce in a past life, I'm not sure if I had that attorney. I had a good attorney, but there's something to be said about the focus forward, which is very positive. There's always challenges in work and life, especially now. I think that the Women Worldwide Network is always looking to hear, as successful as you are as a divorce attorney and all the things as a litigator. Do you have challenges, and how do you maybe look at challenges and tackle them for yourself?
I sort of have viewed this whole process. So I went from doing corporate litigation to divorce, and I had been doing corporate litigation for 6 years. And when I started trying to figure out how to change my practice area, everybody kept saying, no, you do this now. This is what you are. You're a corporate litigator. You can't just change. And I just kept thinking, well, that's not what they said in law school. They said we were being taught how to be attorneys. Why should I limit myself?
Right.
So I've sort of viewed each challenge as like, you hit a wall and it's a really steep climb where you just have to really work hard. And then you sort of hit like a plateau where it's sort of easier and you kind of got it and you kind of know something. And then all of a sudden there's the next wall. And it's like, you got to get ready to work. And people will sometimes, I think, hit those plateaus and just be like, you know what? If I see a wall coming, I'm just not going to climb it. I'm just going to stay right here. I know enough. I can just do this. But if you don't actively sort of force yourself to take harder cases or more complicated cases of things that you haven't seen before, then you'll never progress. You'll never keep climbing. So I always make a point of sort of doing that self-assessment. Okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable. Now's the time for me to take on the next challenge. What's the next challenging case that I can really sort of dig into?
I like that. I mean, it is your mindset and how you're looking at that wall, that plateau, and your next steps. And it sounds like you have a healthy, positive way of looking at it, always knowing that there's something else. And
well, that doesn't mean that you don't see that wall and just feel like, oh God, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? This is gonna be a hard one. Like, I don't know. Why did I do this?
Be realistic about your walls.
Yeah, exactly. So you think about like, why did I do this? But you got to keep pushing forward, especially when it's tied to now there's a client depending on you to really get this done.
Yeah, and from a personal angle, that woman or man who comes to you, when there's family, when you have kids, right? That wall, you kind of have to, it looks tough. You got to get over it. And there's going to be a plateau, but there might be another wall. So you probably see that a lot as well. What keeps you motivated every day to do what you do?
I mean, like I said, when you have people relying on you in that way, it's very incredibly motivating because people are trusting you, people are depending on you for advice. And it's not just, some corporation with some, patent problem or some, lawsuit with another big corporation. These are they're individuals and it's incredibly personal. And so then when I take on a client, it becomes incredibly personal to me because I want to make sure, I'm prioritizing what it is that they want to get out of this experience and what the ranges are and how we can get them there. And that's why I sort of like that full package approach because I think divorce is a very emotional experience. Well, I know it is. I'm also divorced. It's a very emotional experience. And, you need to be working on both of those things in conjunction, or else you come out of it, not prepared to deal with where you're at.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to come out of it whole.
Yeah.
So, well, you know what? I can't even believe we're up to that rounded out advice question for all women worldwide, the network. Can you just share your parting advice and what you would tell families about marriage and families and those challenges that they may face?
Okay. I mean, I think I've seen a lot of marriages going badly. And so what I really think is important that most people need to work on to have successful marriages is to be mindful, to bring a level of mindfulness every single day to everything that you're doing, and to try to have conversations with your spouse and sort of set goals and maybe have like little team meetings so that you can keep being mindful. That's how I like to see it anyway, the mindfulness aspect of it, because people stop appreciating each other and then they start taking each other for granted, and then they can fall out of a marriage.
Absolutely. I mean, you said there's a lot to unpack there, but the mindfulness, the setting goals, the team meeting, always remembering that you are a team. And, the more that you can talk about things is really important. Morghan, thank you so much for that advice. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
Sure. So I have a couple of websites. My personal website is morghanrichardson.com. And my name is spelled with an H after the G, so it's a little tricky. I also have a blog called The Divorce Artist, and you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your journey, sharing advice, and we really appreciate your time. So thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. And to all of you out there, women worldwide, we just hope that you stay safe and healthy. We're thinking about you. And if you want to share, you know where to find us. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Dee Breckenridge, or you can email me, deirdre@pureperformancecom.com. And that's com with 2 M's.com. And we will be here delivering the guests, the stories, and the advice for you. So friends, until our next episode, stay healthy, focused, energized, and feeling empowered. Thank you.